Meet Han Solo and Chewbacca. Before they joined the rebellion against the Empire, the Captain Han Solo and his co-pilot Chewbacca made their living by transporting cargo across the galaxy in the Millennium Falcon. But when Jabba the Hutt hires them to pick up a cargo container at Fornax Station, Han and Chewie pick up something else. Trouble.
Hello, younglings, and welcome back to the Padawan Library, the Star Wars Junior Book Podcast. To this week's episode, we're talking books, of course. We have Chariots of Fire, not a book, which I've already screwed this up. And then a book we're talking about, Adventures in
Hyperspace.
Oh my god, I'm a disaster.
Okay, let me take over. Welcome to the Padawan Library. I'm Tim May, here as always with Levi Paratic.
Hello.
And we're talking today. This is the Star Wars Junior Novel Podcast normally. I think you were trying to make a joke that this book we're reading today is not really a novel. I'll say that lengthwise, none of the books we read for this podcast are novels. They're all novella length at best. Anyway, Adventures in Hyperspace, the first book in this series, called Fire, Rain, Race. And we decided, we decided last week that the movie we'd watch this week to tie in, you were like, I want to pick the movie. And I'll be fair to you, you didn't really pick the movie, Mel picked the movie.
Yeah.
Alright. But you were like going off about how like I've been picking too many of the movies. You wanted to pick a movie, all right? And so ultimately you settled on Chariots of Fire, the 1981 Best Picture winner,
because it had race and fire in it,
which
like the fire ring.
Perfect tie-in. I agree. However, you have only watched half of this film. You texted me earlier today and were like, "Have you watched the movie yet?" And I said, "Yeah, I watched it this morning." And you were like, "Oh, damn, I thought we could just talk about Spiral from the Book of Saw." Which we will, audience. Don't worry. And I was like, "Well, I watched it already." And you're like, "Okay, I'll get to it." And then I was like, "I'm going to be free to record earlier than I expected." Mm-hmm. And you were like, "Oh, I still haven't watched the movie." And I was like, and you were like, "Can we put it off till next week?" And I was just like, "I got my hot Chariots of Fire takes going right now. I can't wait a week." And then you're like, "Okay, let's do it at 2:30. We're recording this at basically 2:30 p.m. Thursday, the day before this episode releases.
Getting it done early, so I have a free evening. That's what I'm looking for.
And I was like, okay, so he's going to have not watched the movie, and I can give him the shit that I'm giving him right now, as you can hear, listeners. But then right before we started recording, he tells me, "Oh, I watched half of Chariots of Fire before we got on." So I had an hour. I needed some lunch. I made a couple hot dogs, and I watched the first half of Chariots of Fire. All right, so let's talk about Chariots of Fire, and then we will talk a little Spiral too, and then we'll talk about this book, of course.
Well, I will say, so the listeners know, the reason I didn't watch the movie this week, the movie that I sort of picked this week,
yes.
I got a lot of things going on. Things got busy. I'm making a move. I'm making a small move for the next 2 months. And guess where I'm going? Cambridge.
Oh!
Just like in Chariots of Fire.
All right, well, Chariots of Fire largely takes place at Cambridge University. Not largely, about half of it.
Uh-huh.
All right, so let's just say... and you're moving to a small town in Pennsylvania called Cambridge Springs for a month or two.
Yes.
All right.
Cambridge.
Yes, very similar culturally, Cambridge Springs and Cambridge, England.
There's a lot of rolling hills.
Yeah, very similar. All right, and then, all right. So this movie, obviously, I think people know the name because it's a Best Picture winner. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's like of the kind of like modern, like post New Hollywood Best Pictures, among the least seen in America. I know it's a hugely popular and important movie in England, so I don't want to, like, any of our English listeners, I'm not trying to talk shit. I'm just saying, I think people our age, it's, like, not a particularly, like, familiar Best Picture winner.
To me, it's always just been a song,
the music,
like the theme song, yeah.
Which, we'll get to the music, which is the best part of this movie, by far. And so, there's, this is a movie about two Olympic gold medalists from the English track and field team in 1924. And their story... This is interesting, because you didn't get to the end. Their stories very lightly cross over with each other, but these two guys did not seem to have any significant relationship with each other. The two main characters of this movie. So you're essentially tracking these two parallel narratives. You have this one guy who's a British Jewish guy at Cambridge, the waspiest place on earth, and like the Cambridge like brass don't want him running for the school and all that. They're letting him run for the school, but they're all like, "Ooh, like what is all this about?" And then the other guy is this Scottish runner who is like very religious. I don't think Catholic. I think more of a Protestant tradition. I can't really tell specifically from... But anyway, very devoted and very famously, based on this true story, that he refused to run in a qualifying race for the Olympics on a Sunday. So this was a big story at the time. So, and that plays out in the second half that you didn't watch. And I'll say this about Chariots of Fire. I think it has a reputation for being this kind of, very Oscar-y movie, and it is. Like it's I'll say it's very well made. The acting is strong. I thought narratively, I didn't know the history, but like going in, but like the fact that these guys have no real relationship with each other, I think hurts it on a pure like gut emotional level. Like I think both of the stories are interesting individually, but like the fact that we're following both of them and they're both at the Olympics at the same time and they like watch each other run, but like there's no, and I don't mind. It's not that I wanted them to invent something where they were best friends or something, but like it was just very strange. I didn't like. But I'll say this about it. The score, which is the most famous part of the movie by Vangelis, one of the great film composers of all time, obviously Blade Runner, and one of my favorite scores of all time, Oliver Stone's Alexander, has an insanely good film score by Vangelis that is, like, you don't even have to watch the movie, just listen to the score, it's great. Anyway, so, incredible. Every music sequence in this movie is awesome. Like, all the running and music sequences are great. The opening like credits with all the team running down on the beach with the famous like theme is incredible, like a truly magical movie moment. So I get why like it captured the excitement and emotion of people. And I think if you think about this movie came out in 1981. The Oscars, it won the Oscar in 1982. They were all these LA people were looking forward to the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. They were just like, oh, we're so pumped to have the Olympics in our town. I feel like that's how that happened. It's not like an incredible Oscar year, but like I will say like the other four nominees were Atlantic City, On Golden Pond, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Reds. Now, I haven't seen On Golden Pond since I was probably like 8 years old. So I have no memory of it really. I know what it is, obviously. And then I think I watched Atlantic City on tape in college. I'm not positive of that, but I think I did. I don't have a lot of familiarity with that movie. Obviously, Reds and Raiders are like better movies than Chariots of Fire. Like I don't think that's controversial. Like both of those are clearly superior and have I mean, Raiders obviously has the longest legacy of any of these movies, but like those movies are just better. I just watched Reds again recently, and one of the greatest movies of all time, an incredible movie. But like a lot of movies that come in that win Best Picture over movies that have that are greater, quote unquote, I think that this movie gets a bit of a bad rap. It's not a bad movie by any means.
No. First hour I saw was alright.
Sure. Didn't even see the best parts of the movie, which are in the
Well, I did get to the part where it was they were watching the girls in the play, the musical, Three Little Maids. Yeah, and I was like, I'll shut it off here. So
great. I'm glad we could have this deep conversation.
But we could have a deep conversation about things that movies that are bad and should have a bad rap.
All right, I want to talk about this.
Okay.
Because I do think this movie's bad. Okay, the movie we're talking about is Spiral from the Book of Saw, released in theaters last weekend. Supposedly conceived by Chris Rock, who does not even have a story by credit on this movie. I'm starting to think that the real story is that he was talking to the head of Lionsgate and was like, sure, I'd be in a Saw movie. And that's the end. Because that's it. There is nothing remotely new about this vision of Saw. It is just a Saw movie. And if you like that kind of thing, I guess it's probably acceptable. On that level,
it's not even
It's not as good as the first Saw, which is a legitimately good movie. But if we're talking about Saw sequel, I'm sure it's probably in the middle of the pack somewhere. I have not seen all the Saw movies, so I can't tell. I couldn't say.
Well, here's what I gotta say about this. So, this movie is directed by the director of Saw 2, 3, and 4.
Which, huge mistake if they wanted to go with something new.
Okay, well, I agree. But he also, you think would bring something that, feels like it's part of the franchise back, and he doesn't. But anyway, this Darren Lynn Bousman, or Bousman, we'll call him Bousman. Okay, first movie he ever directs is Saw 2.
Right.
Alright?
Then he does that repo thing, right?
No. He does Saw 2 through 4, back to back, alright? And Saw 2 is his first movie. Basically, he goes to LA, he's got a script that he's showing around, and they're like, this movie's too much like Saw. But then he gets introduced to the producer of Saw, and then the producer is like,
Lee Wanell?
Yes.
Lee Wanell, I think, maybe becoming the best Saw guy. No shots at James Wan, but The Invisible Man, baby. That's a movie. Right?
That movie was great, yeah.
Rules too.
So basically they get introduced and they write Saw 2 together. Then Bousman directs a music video. Okay. And then that gives Lionsgate enough faith in the guy to direct Saw 2. So he directs 2, 3, and 4. Each of these movies, Saw 2 grossed $147 million on a $4 million budget.
Sure.
Saw 3, $10 million budget.
For Saw 2. With
the two fingers. It's really smart.
Iconic poster, yeah.
Saw 3, budget at $10 million, $164 million. And then 4, $10 million budget again, $139. Grosses over nearly $600 million. And then the guy kind of has a blank check for the rest of his career, up until this point. Because he's done nothing but he's been insanely active in making movies ever since, including Repo, the Genetic Opera, which stars our boy Giles.
Sure.
So all right,
that movie is bad. That's a bad movie.
Okay,
that was popular in college. When we were in college, there was a certain type of person that was like, "This is good." I
know. I agree.
No. It's not good.
There's also a certain type of person who thinks the movie Across the Universe is good. And
that's a totally different thing. I don't think it's that good, but
I think they're musicals. They're musicals from the same time that I think people were obsessed with.
Completely different scale, but whatever.
All right, 2008 Repo, 2010 Mother's Day, 2011 11/11/11, 2012 The Devil's Carnival, 2012 The Barons, 2014 Angelus, 2015 Tales of Halloween, 2016 Alleluia, The Devil's Carnival, 2016. Yeah. He did. Abater from 2016, Saint Agatha from 2018, Death of Me from 2020, and then Spiral from the Book of Saw this year.
I literally heard of none of those except the Saw movies and Repo.
Apparently he is the creative force on almost like all of, like, somehow he's like he's just like they're one. He didn't write them all, but this last one, Death of Me, stars Luke Hemsworth from last year. But he just like just jumped.
The third Hemsworth. Okay. The fact that you just said this guy got a blank check when he's made nothing but completely unknown to everyone VOD movies, like. He's working. Props to him. Yeah. He's working. I would not call that a blank check.
It's a blank check. Right. It's a blank check. How do you make 2 of the Devil's Carnival that you were just
they probably cost like $900,000. That's how. And got like a bunch of Russian oligarchs' tax credits.
Actually, $500,000.
Yeah, he's like, that's probably how. And he has a name you could say from the director of Saw 2, 3, 4. Like that'll sell at a red box. That's how he got them made. It's not that complicated. I would not call that a blank check. He can't go.
It's a blank.
He's not going in to Warner Media / Discovery Plus right now and saying, I want to make my dream project. Give me $150 million. I'm the new George Miller. That's not happening. So
Instead, Lionsgate came to him and been like, "We're bringing back Saw. We need you."
All right, that is so weird to me that they brought him back, because there's another thing I wanted to point. We'll talk a little more about the specifics of this movie, but aesthetically, I wanted to talk. This movie looks like it was made in 2007, doesn't it? It
has like a weird aura to it.
It
yeah,
has that early Company 3 color correction. You know what I'm talking about, Levi. You know all the and it has that weird glowy digital color correction, as if it was shot. I'm sure it was shot digitally, but as if it was shot on film and then horribly color corrected digitally. That's the aesthetic they seem to be going for, which just reminds me of those Saw movies, which are from a totally different time in the history of mainstream movie aesthetics.
Yeah, well, they had that definite aesthetic too about them, just like that very kind of early garish lighting about them.
Well, because they were the first one, which is obviously not this guy. It's James Wan, who is a good director. That movie's very derivative aesthetically of David Fincher, or 90s Fincher specifically. You know, it's
definitely
going for very much going for a 7 vibe. This movie, from the trailer, I was like, oh, looks like Chris Rock's trying to play Morgan Freeman in 7, which is not what he's doing. I was shocked when I saw that. His performance is wild. I don't really and I'm a pretty big Chris Rock fan. Probably my favorite stand-up comedian of my life. And I don't think he's a great actor, but he can be good in the right role, that kind of thing. And I just watched this, and it's first of all, there's 2 scenes where he's just doing stand-up bits, to his partner or to the people he's in the scene with, and it's just in the middle of this Saw movie, it's just these are cast-offs from the last Chris Rock special, and it's very strange. It's actively weird. I was this guy, and then this movie, it's oh, it's going to be more of a procedural. It's just a Saw movie, really. There's nothing there's nothing new structurally about it. Because all the Saw movies are police procedurals, basically. They all follow a detective.
Well, most of them do.
A lot of them do.
But it's the same trope that happens in the Hellraiser movies a lot, where it's a detective gets wrapped in this thing, and the later Saw movies all did this, especially because at some point there's this one guy, Hoffman, who is he is a protege of Jigsaw, but yet he's also a detective, so he's working both sides of it. But anyway, yeah, this has been done before in the series, without a doubt. There's nothing new added here. There's nothing really creative going on here.
This is the thing, this whole idea that, and again, this whole idea that Chris Rock brought this to Lionsgate, I just don't believe that. Like, because, first of all, again, he doesn't even have a story by credit on this movie. Like, if he would be able to win that arbitration if he had, like, just suggested, I want to play a cop in a Saw movie and, like, have my dad in it or whatever. If he had been the first to suggest that, then he would get the story by credit. like, even if it was that minimal. Like, so I don't really, like, it's a weird marketing choice on the part of Lionsgate to be, like, selling it this as, like, Chris Rock's vision of Saw. They didn't really do that in the others, to be fair. But, like, when they announced the movie, like, there was, like, oh, Chris Rock pitched us his terrifying vision.
It's being all sold on Rock.
And, like,
You're
I
like...
kept selling it on him. He's, like, certainly the biggest star to lead one of these movies, like, or among them. I don't know if you want to say Carrie Elways. That seems a little disrespectful to Chris Rock, who's, like, still is, like, the lead in TV shows and stuff still. Carrie Elways feels like he's hotter now than he was in 2004 when he was in that movie. But, like, I feel like it'd be a bigger deal to cast him in something now than it was then. But, I don't know. It's just weird. And Sam Jackson plays his dad, and we were dreaming of Sam being the new Jigsaw, and I actually thought it might. About halfway through, I was like, "Is this gonna happen? Are we gonna get?"
Because he disappears.
And I'm like, "Oh, maybe Sam is gonna get to be the new Jigsaw." But no, spoiler, I'm giving it away. His new Jigsaw, is his partner, played by Max Minghella, Anthony Mangela's son. I like to point that out. That's always a fun. And Max Minghella, I like, from The Social Network. A good actor, but like. It's just so, like, and he, like, but, like, his performance is very weird, like...
Oh, well, because, like, he's this detective this whole time, and then you learn that, okay, so Chris Rock apparently a good cop who turned in a dirty cop, but now all the other cops are against him. Right? Nobody has his back. He's a but he's acting like a dirty cop in my opinion.
He, like, the whole movie. Up, like, he does all kinds of dirty shit. It's sad.
Yeah, he does dirty shit all over the place. But anyway,
the movie,
turns out
faints at trying to say something, and then it doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything because,
it's not, like, offensive. It just doesn't do anything. Like, it's like it's very weird.
Basically, the partner, Nick from Handmaid's Tale,
Max Minghella, be respectful.
Sorry, just so people know.
I said he was in The Social Network. People should know that. I bet more people have seen that movie than have watched misery porn Handmaid's Tale for 40 episodes.
I don't know about that. That show is very popular.
You should all watch.
Anyway, it's very miserable.
I love the book. I just I don't like. There's a million reasons I'm not interested in the adaptation, even despite my love of half the people in the cast.
Anyway, he reveals himself to be the son of a guy who got shot, like an innocent man who was a witness.
Chris Rock's
he got
former
shot.
Partner who he turned in.
Right. So now this is the son, and for 10 years or whatever, since he was 10 years old, he's been plotting his revenge against the crooked cops of the police force. And he knew that Chris Rock would be on his side, so he becomes a detective, he gets assigned to the precinct, he gets assigned to be Chris Rock's partner. Meanwhile, he's like this mechanical genius who has built these way overly elaborate traps, which are like way more elaborate than some of, like, because if I get to watch the original Saw, me and you had a discussion off air about this, how I was going to watch this movie. I went to the drive-in to see this movie. They played it with the original Saw afterwards. Okay.
Very funny.
Made me like Saw a little less this time because I was just annoyed after Spiral.
Oh, well, that's unfair.
But anyway, but Saw compared to Spiral, the traps are very simple. It's like a razor wire trap kind of thing. You have the reverse bear trap is the most complicated thing, and then the most elegant trap, of course, is the bathroom between the back and forth of the two men. But this doesn't take that at all. We have conveyor belts full of glass that goes into grinders that hitch jet engines, which are then pelted into a man.
The whole thing is crazy. So I'll say...
But anyway, but then the new Jigsaw, he's just like, I want to go after crooked cops, and you can be my partner.
Like you can be my man in the inside that'll help me identify the crooked cops and all that. Again, conceptually not a terrible idea. Again, but they do nothing with it. It's revealed way too late for anything to matter. The ending itself, I legitimately don't really understand what happens at the end of the movie.
Nor do I.
And I think a lot of that's on Bousman, who is a horrible director. And I'm talking about on just like a pure craft level. He stinks. I don't understand.
I found an article that's a reason for this, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. So he wants to create, this is an IndieWire article that says he wants to create a real-life Westworld. So apparently he's kind of tired of making movies because he's made so many of them. And he is getting into, like, interactive theater VR kind of thing. All right, so what do they call this? He calls it what did he? Anyway, but he's trying to do like immersive theater sort of thing, and he's apparently Joe Russo and Anthony Russo are big of Endgame, Avengers Endgame. Are actually big fans of his immersive theatrical work, and they have actually funded one of his they were going to do a live Vegas show together, these three. They were going to fund the whole thing, and then the pandemic broke out, and so the show fell through. So, but like, he actually doesn't like, it sounds like he's just like, I'm a little tired of, I'm done with movies. I think
he's always been a bad director. That's part of it. Like,
well, because his first movie is Saw 2.
I didn't have high hopes for this. I just thought the title is an all-timer. It is called Spiral. Let me remind everyone. It is called Spiral from the Book of Saw. The book, we opened the book is closed. Like, very funny. I just think about like, who in the marketing department was just like, yeah, from the Book of Saw. And I get it actually makes a little more sense because it's a Jigsaw copycat killer, and he's like taking a page from his book,
Who really he does. He physically does. Not that he has any reason to be a Jigsaw copycat killer, really.
Yeah, he could be just a guy. It wouldn't matter. Like,
how about that 8x10 of Tobin Bell in the movie? Did you catch that?
How about Jigsaw, like his fake voice for Jigsaw?
I hated the fake voice for Jigsaw.
Funniest all time, like,
because it was just like a woman computer. Like, that's all I heard.
It was so good. That made me laugh really hard. Listen, the movie is bad. It's pretty gross. You called it repugnant. I'll say repulsive, maybe. Which I don't disagree with. I just think it's funny because you, in the last couple of months, when the new Mortal Kombat movie was coming out, you said that movie looked too violent for you, despite the fact that your most anticipated movie at that time was Spiral from the Book of Saw. And I was like, that movie's going to be way more violent than Mortal Kombat, right? And you're like... well, when I was younger, I had more of a stomach for this sort of thing, and I just don't anymore. You texted me after, it was like, oh, it's repulsive, and I'm just like... And I was going in thinking it was going to be like, demonstrably worse than your average Saw movie. And I'm not saying it's not repulsive, but I was like, I don't feel like they linger on these shots nearly as long as the old movies used to. Like, this seems like a little more like...
See, I thought things went too long. That was me. It was too long. I'll tell you this. Whenever things were too gory, I would turn around because I was at the drive-in and I could see the screen behind me, and they were playing that new Jason Statham.
Oh, Wrath of Man.
So I just kept watching that anytime. It's like, I don't want to watch this. Especially that stupid, like, Chinese finger trap thing. Like,
that was bad. That one and the tongue one at the beginning were the two that...
but the wax one...
That one didn't bother me as much. I don't know. Like, it was...
Mel said every time she was just like, I would just choose death. This is all horrible. Like, every one of these things is just horrible. So
I suppose.
But none of the traps, in my opinion, seem winnable either, which is just like this guy just wants to kill cops. Like, he doesn't want to actually give them a chance. He's going, that's how he's not Jigsaw. He's not Tobin Bell, so. Yeah. But, I will say this, because I have seen all of these movies, except for Jigsaw. I've only seen an hour of Jigsaw.
Yeah, like, you put that and Chariots of Fire together, that's an interesting film right there.
Yeah, mm-hmm. So, at the end of Saw 3D, which was advertised as the last one, Jigsaw's been dead since the third movie, and he had a slew of proteges. They introduced his ex-wife into the mix. And then Saw 3D brought Cary Elwes back, and he is like the leader. He survived Saw 1, and he is now the leader of like a support group of like Jigsaw survivors, alright? And then at the end of the movie, it's revealed that him and the Jigsaw survivors are carrying on the legacy. They are a group, and they need to carry on Jigsaw's legacy.
That's so dumb.
But it's just not explored any further than that, so...
That is deeply stupid. Wow. I didn't know that.
The legacy lives forever, but, like, Jigsaw doesn't touch on this at all, and nor did Spiral did not touch on that at all.
They want to make Saw 10, so...
It has to happen. I mean, you get to 10 movies. Like, when you're at the 10th one, it has to happen,
Saw
right?
X, you know.
Mm-hmm. We need... That's like there's that new G.I. Joe movie coming out.
Snake Eyes.
Snake Eyes, is it G.I. Joe Origins?
I think so, yeah.
Which just makes me think of X-Men Origins, Wolverine.
One of the great dumb titles ever.
Yeah, we got a great dumb title, Spiral, Jason X, Saw X. Yeah, like, I need these repeat titles in my life.
That, like, Bousman was just like, well, Spiral isn't Saw 9, so if they made another one, that would have to be Saw 9.
I saw that too.
Like, what are you talking about? It's definitely Saw 9. There's nothing like... and like
you can't call it like a new thing.
Like, whatever. Anyway, let's wrap this up. I don't recommend the film. If you're making your return to the movie theater, some of our listeners might be figuring out which one they want to see, the first movie back or second movie back or whatever, early days still of the return. Don't pick Spiral. There's so many other movies.
No,
that you can see. Go
see Cruella.
That's what next week.
I'm excited for. It's actually interesting. Next week is Quiet Place 2 and Cruella. It's going to be a big week.
Both those will actually do well. I think, especially Quiet Place since it's not available anywhere else. So.
Right.
I'm not excited about Cruella. I love 101 Dalmatians, but all derivative media I don't like. And the director of this movie also made I, Tonya, which is a movie I hate. So,
I, Tonya wasn't great.
I feel like that movie is
loved.
I don't want to get into it. I'm not a fan of that movie. I think that movie is a bunch of horse shit, actually, but whatever. But I don't know how much that's him or just the script or whatever, so, yeah.
This movie is good for one thing, and I think that'll be for a couple YouTube clips of Samuel L. Jackson yelling at people.
He has some good moments. I mean, he's always good.
I texted you one of his lines at one point. I don't know if you caught it, but it was just, fuck you very much. So I can't even remember why you said that.
Chris Rock had a reference to something that he did in the past in the movie, and I remember rolling my eyes through the back of my head, and I'm trying to remember what it was. And it wasn't a stand-up reference. It was like a reference to one of his movies, maybe? God damn it. I wish I could remember, but I was just like, what the fuck? It reminded me of that dumb moment in Kong Skull Island when Sam Jackson says, hold on to your butts. I was like, so bad. Like, what are you doing? Like, I was like, no. I wish I could remember this line. If I remember it, I'll try to remember to say it next week. So, anyway, that's enough Spiral talk. Chariots of Fire, a fine movie. You should check it out if it ever pops up on HBO Max or something, other than that, we've got a book to discuss. So
we certainly do. The Fire Ring Race.
When we come back, we'll be talking Fire Ring Race. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Padawan Library. I'm Tim May, here as always with Levi Peretic.
Hello.
And this week we are talking Adventures in Hyperspace. Not Wild Space, Hyperspace. Fire Ring Race, the first book in this short series. We'll get to that in one moment, but we forgot to mention what we're covering next week. We're actually not going to do a movie next week for a very simple reason. Our episode's coming out on May 28th, which is 3 days after May 25th, our Star Wars Day, Orthodox Star Wars Day, as we like to call it. We don't recognize that marketing ploy, May the 4th. Get out of here.
Get out of here.
We talk about May 25th. That's the day that the great film Star Wars was released in theaters in 1977. So, to me,
the day the world changed.
Yeah, it's the only day where you would celebrate Star Wars specifically. You know, not that there needs to be an official Star Wars holiday, despite being a huge Star Wars fan. We don't need holidays for media franchises. Like, what is this about? But we are a Star Wars podcast, so we're going to celebrate by doing an actual Star Wars topic next week, outside of our book review. So we're going to do a big draft. We've done these in the past. Once with Sopranos characters. Great Star Wars content. But next week we are going to draft characters, non-Star Wars movie characters, from any book we've ever reviewed on this show. We're going to draft them into 5-on-5 basketball teams with with 6 men and etc. You know, maybe a coach. Like, we'll figure out all the details in the next week. But we're going to do that, and it's going to be Padawan Library's May Madness.
It's going to be a showdown between Tim and I.
Oh, showdown, because the second book, you see,
is the Shinbone Showdown.
And, you know, frankly, we didn't have a lot of movie options either for that title.
Shinbone Alley, that was about
showdown, you know.
Oh, well, yeah, well, there's also, I was looking at Showdown in Little Tokyo with Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee.
Yes.
So that's
all right. But we're not talking about a movie next week. We're going to do that draft. So for those of you who maybe have been like, you know, you and I, me and Levi, we've been like, this is our best season yet. We're having such great conversations, you know. But I'm sure there are probably fans that are like, I wish they would talk occasionally about Star Wars in the opening segment. And if you were one of those fans, get excited for next week, because we're going to go deep. And we're going to talk about, and by the way, we are drafting for who is the best in a basketball game.
Yes.
The Earth sport of basketball. So we'll talk about that next week. I don't want to waste all my basketball jokes, but it's also celebrating the beginning of the NBA playoffs. Get stoked, everybody! All right. So
this week, the Fire Ring Race by Ryder Wyndham, illustrations by Robert Rath, who I will talk about next week. Tim, do you know anything about Ryder Wyndham?
He has written many of these sorts of books, many Star Wars tie-in books, lots of novelizations, or like basically like, this is the movie from this character's perspective type stuff, right?
He certainly has.
And he wrote a Clone Wars series we'll be reading at some point.
Yes.
And
he actually has.
I'll say this.
Go ahead. He has 60 titles under his belt. 60 Star Wars titles under his belt.
He's prolific.
And including comics, too. Including, like, droids and, he oversaw... This is what... Because the Wikipedia article says really something funny about him. Wyndham is referred to as, without a doubt, Dark Horse's preeminent Star Wars editor. So they hold him in high esteem.
Editor, I believe it. Yeah, I listened to this was years ago, and I could not find the podcast. Many years ago. I think we're talking like late 2000s. I listened to a podcast that was, I believe, just a recording of a convention panel with him. I think like Michael A. Stackpole, like a couple of their Star Wars writers, all right? And I remember him saying at the time, you know, like, the fans care way more about this than we do. Which, as as a fan, I appreciate that, and I don't really hold that against him. I just think it's very funny that he said that. At a Star Wars convention, basically. I might be misquoting him. This was many years ago, but it stuck in my mind, and when I saw his name on this book, I was like, he's that guy, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is. So,
well, a lot of his titles include the Star Wars adventure novels, which we are not getting into.
Those are more like kind of role-playing game books and stuff.
Right, and and he goes all the way back to the episode 1/1, so he's been around for a while. This book, of course, came out in 2010. Is when this. Yeah. I don't know if yours has this great advertisement for Clone Wars toys with that huge image of Cad Bane in the back.
Yeah, I got it.
I like that.
All right. Good Lord. All right, so these books, we mentioned it last week when we were saying we were covering these. They're a little different from the books we normally read. They're aimed, I think, at a younger audience even than the books we typically read, but they're not quite just like straight up kids books, because they're still like 90 pages, although with plentiful illustrations. And Adventures in Hyperspace, this is a series. The concept is that it's a bunch of adventures with Han Solo and Chewbacca pre-New Hope.
Pre-A New Hope.
Not really much else to set up. You guys know who Han Solo is. You guys know who Chewbacca is. This series begins, the Fire Rain race begins with Han and Chewie trying to sell off some junk to Jabba. And
they're selling two-headed worms they're selling.
Yeah.
And Han wants 100 credits. Jabba wants 80 credits. They settle on 90. And then Jabba's like...
Taggling.
And then Jabba's like, I want to know where these came from. And Han's like, nope, can't tell you, Jabba. And then when him and Chewie fly away, it's like, oh, he can never find out we stole those off a fertilizer truck.
I'm sure Jabba would really care about that.
If they tasted that good.
After this transaction, though, Jabba offers a job to Han where he wants to get some silk, right? It's like just some fabric, right? What is it?
Yes, a Lhasa silk.
He wants to get this fabric, this silk, from what do you call it? The safe deposit box
at Fornax.
At Fornax Station, which
kind of reminded me of Fort Knox.
Yeah, I think that's probably the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And they accept the job pretty quickly. They go off. They think it's going to be simple enough. And I have to say, spoiler alert, it is pretty simple.
It is fairly simple.
Happening here. There's a little bit of a hiccup, but not substantial.
Well, the hiccup is actually funny.
It's funny. But it's not.
All right.
It's not like, how is Han going to get out of this one? I never felt. I never was like, is Han going to be able to do this? I mean, obviously we know he's going to because it's a Star Wars book, but like, we'll get to it. Keep going. You go.
Okay. So anyway, they get to Fornax, and their ship, they have a cloaking device on the Falcon, so it doesn't read as the Falcon. It reads as the Close Shave. And then when they get onto the planet, they have a big bag, and they are posing as freelance barbers. So
that was funny.
Yes, I thought that was funny too. So anyway, they get this Imperial signal from inside the thing, and at one point, Han, he's like, I wonder if there's any stormtroopers here. Better talk to a shoe shine droid. So he tries to squeeze the shoe shine droid for information. When he does that, the shoe shine droid gets suspicious and calls the authorities on him. So Han has to go to the safety deposit box. This is where the silk is apparently at. And when they go to the box, the authorities show up, and you have cheap Smurdap is his name.
Yeah, is it?
Smurdap.
Yeah, Smurdap.
I have Smurdap. And he, of course, accuses them of smuggling. they act like, no, we're not smuggling anything. This is our barber material. Look at this. And he pulls out a huge comb.
This was I like this illustration of this giant comb.
It looks like one of those Klingon weapons.
Yeah, it looks like a bat lift. A bat lift. Wow.
Yeah. And then at one point, so they leave. Smurdap is embarrassed. And they leave, and Han runs into a lady. And this lady, she is the Royal Magravine of Ambinel. Wait, the
Abominel.
The Royal
You're looking forward to
Magravine.
Cruella, man. Like, this is that kind of name.
It is. She is the Royal Margravine Habinel.
Abominel.
Avina. Anyway, Han runs into her. He says, he makes a joke at her expense. She's like, "It's my wedding day. How dare you insult me?"
Like he would
then
know, you know.
Mm-hmm. Then, so they get back to the Falcon. Smurdap shows back up, and he goes, "Her wedding dress has gone missing. I know it's on your ship." They get out of the ship. They search the ship. Surprise, it's there. Han's like, "Smurdap, you planted that." And Smurdap's like, "No one will ever believe you." So then they get in the Falcon. They try to like get out of the place. The hyperdrive, of course, isn't working. Smurdap and some drones are on their tail. And then like somehow on the comms unit, like Han gets Smurdap to like admit that he planted the dress. And then they like take Smurdap down, and then they go back to the place. They clear it up.
By the way, they run through where the book gets its title. They have all this space station is near this space anomaly, these fire rings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this chase all happens through these rings, which no ship has ever survived flying through these rings.
Except one.
Except add it to the Han ledger. The legend of Han's ledger, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Chewie.
So anyway, they return the dress, at which point Her Royal Highness is like, "I have called the wedding off. I'm in love with another man." And then Han's like, well, good luck with that.
And like it's actually not particularly indicated in the prose, but the illustration is like her like
this illustration of her like gasping is
so good. They you make sure you post that illustration on the Instagram. But and then and Han's like, "Oh, I don't know what that was about," and Chewie like is like, "You like you motherfucker, like always cool with the ladies, you know, that kind of thing." So it's you know, that's the end of that book. All right, we don't go back to Jabba. We don't go back to Jabba. I don't even want to say that. I don't really want to say anything particularly negative about this book. I had a good time reading it. It's fun. It's for little kids. We're talking probably like 3rd and 4th graders.
This is a young reader, not a junior novel.
Yeah, we're talking 3rd, 4th graders maximum, I would imagine, for this. And on that level, it's entertaining. I will say, the obstacles thrown in the way of Han just never felt like at his level. You know what I mean? And that's my problem.
Yeah, he's above it all.
Again, it's not that I had any doubt when I opened the book that he would overcome whatever obstacles, but they don't even like give you anything. Like it's just a little too like he glides through this book a little too easily, in my view.
I'll tell you why, and it's not addressed in this book. Han Solo is force sensitive, and his magic force powers, he can tell when any mechanical object is sound, and he passed that down to his son Anakin.
Indeed. What a weird force power. All right. I hate to say this because we're only 14 minutes into the second half of this episode, but I don't really think we have much else to say here.
Hang on, let me check my notes, see if there's anything other silliness, but I really don't think there is.
Let's talk a little about the illustrations, I guess, which we don't know much about the illustrator. Sounds like you're looking him up for next week.
Yeah, right.
But I'll say the illustrations are fine, but there's And I actually think some of them are pretty cool and dynamic, but there's definitely like a little bit of like that thing where clearly this guy is like more of a cartoonist, but I feel like he's trying too hard and sometimes to like get a good likeness of Harrison Ford.
Yeah, because Han's face is all over the place.
And I'd prefer if it was just simplified and like you're not trying too hard to go for the likeness. That especially when you have a more cartoony style, I think it doesn't work as well. And I do like some of these droid designs a lot, including one that looks a lot like the Fugitoid from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I thought was kind of cool. But yeah, so illustrations are fine. Did you have anything else? Any other notes you wanted to make about the story?
No, not really.
All right.
Nothing at all.
All right. I think it's fine for what it is. I don't want to be harsh on it. But it's also something I will never think about again in my life, including when we review the sequel next week. So I'm going to give it probably a 6 out of 10. I think for what it's trying to do, it succeeds. It's like if you are the parent of a, 8-year-old and they take this out home from if they bring this home from the school library, it's an entertaining read. You might want to flip through, check out the illustrations, but that's about it.
Maybe we should have. I think I'm going to impose a new midichlorian scale. These are baby midichlorians because they're for babies, and this is quality baby material. So I'm going to give this a 8 baby. That's like baby midichlorians.
Oh jeez. Yeah, okay, fine. That's acceptable. That's fair enough. So, man, so early here.
It is so early.
Hey, it's a short episode. It happens.
It is a short episode. Something. I told you, but this week I'm going back to the drive-in.
Okay.
Because my mother, for her Mother's Day gift, really wanted to go see. They're doing a special event at the drive-in that is Bon Jovi The Experience. And when I told you this off air, you got real excited.
It's very funny. I'm not a Bon Jovi fan. Let me say it at all. I don't like Bon Jovi. I don't fuck with Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi is corny as fuck.
You sound like my dad, because my mother wanted to go to a Bon Jovi concert, and I was like, I'm not going to that. And my dad wouldn't take her, and my dad's reasoning is because he's too much of a boss man.
I agree with your dad!
He's like, I can't disrespect New Jersey that way.
And listen, I know that him and Bruce seem like they're like at least friendly. Like I think Bruce is like I'm an E Street Bander for life, and I don't fuck around with other rock stars that much. But he seems friendly enough with John Bon Jovi, and that's all well and good. But I don't understand. Like people are like, man, you can't deny living on a prayer. Oh yeah, I can.
Yeah, I can.
That song is like weak ass Bruce imitation. That's all that is. With like a talk box. Get the fuck out of here with your talk box. Fucking Peter Frampton, I'm glad he's still alive as a human, but his career should stay in the goddamn 70s and die where it belongs. Alright. I was about to say he died in the 70s. I was like, well, he's alive, and I'm not happy I'm happy he's still alive. Alright.
Tim hates that Frampton's alive.
Frampton came alive in the 70s, and then he went silent in the 80s, and he would stay silent.
Okay. So what are you doing this week, Tim?
This weekend, what am I doing? I thought I was actually like getting excited. I was gonna go down to a big comic book sale in Elwood City.
Ooh.
But this is the only weekend they're not doing it this year. So I'm just going in June. I think the weekend we're going on a trip together next weekend. So I think the weekend after that I'm going to do it. But it's just like,
oh, good.
Yeah, no. Anyway, I don't really have any specific plans. I'll probably go see. There's something coming out this weekend that I'm like, I'm going to go see Dream Horse. You see this trailer?
No, I haven't.
Dream Horse. It's Toni Collette, who I love.
Okay.
And Damian Lewis, who I also love.
Oh, it's like a horse racing movie. I think I actually.
And they're citizens of this working class English town that all pool their money together and buy a championship level thoroughbred racehorse to go up against those snotty motherfucker aristocrats. And I'm like, that sounds fun. That sounds charming. And I like these actors, so I think I'll go see that.
That sounds good.
All right, so especially horse racing in the news and everything with the Kentucky Derby winner probably getting disqualified for PEDs.
Yeah, testing positive for steroids, failing the drug test.
Damn! You can't trust the cleanest of sports, horse racing. If you can't believe in horse racing, can you believe in America? All right, let's wrap this up.
All right, until the books of Saw come back.
The library of Saw is closed. Padawan Library is hosted and produced by Tim May and Levi Peretic. It is edited by Tim May. Our theme song is by The Astral Project. Our artwork is by Freddie Funbuns. Padawan Library is copyright 2021. Tim May and Levi Peretic. All rights reserved.